Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 109 of The Game Changers. I am your host, Carla, and tonight I'm turning up the heat with the brilliant Scott Hoyt. Scott doesn't just know the game, he reads the plays before they happen, and we are about to pull back the curtain on the game behind the game. Big love to the TSA team for fueling this mission of amplifying voices and sparking ideas. This show exists because of visionaries like them and listeners like you. If you want fantasy football gold, perspective shifting stories, or a fresh way to see the world, you are in the right place. The Game Changers isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Let's get into it. Scott Hoyt. Who is Scott Hoyt? He is the CEO and founder of Fantasy Sports Strategies, an advisory firm guiding companies through the fast evolving fantasy sports landscape. He brings nearly 40 years of executive level marketing experience with industry giants including IBM, AT&T, Procter and Gamble, and the Southland Corporation. Nationally recognized for his strategic marketing leadership, Scott has helped organizations of every size build and elevate their brand platforms, sharpen their market position, and launch products with clarity and impact. While his resume includes some of the most iconic brands in the country, he's equally passionate about helping startups find their voice, define their identity, and break into the market with purpose. From global campaigns and public relations to digital strategy and go to market execution, Scott's work has shaped award winning initiative and empowered companies to stand out in a crowded landscape. Today, he brings that same depth of expertise to the fantasy sports industry, helping businesses navigate opportunities with insight, precision, and vision. Hi, Scott. Welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
Hi, Carla. Thank you for that unbelievable introduction. I need to find the person who wrote that because I probably owe them some money for that.
I did. I do everything. I write my whole show. So maybe we'll talk later about owning me some money.
You could write my resume anytime you want. Trust me.
I appreciate that. I love making my guests feel welcome, so I try my best to find the good words for them. So thank you so much. I'm really honored to have you tonight on the show, and I welcome you on the Game Changers. So let's talk a little bit about strategy and business model, Scott. What core problem does your community solve that competitors consistently overlook?
Well, so I'm going to take it from two different dimensions. I'm going to take it from the big companies that are out there, the Fortune 500 type companies. And then I'm going to give you the perspective from startups because those are two very different models that people have to understand that the way you operate a startup is very diverse in how you would handle a big corporation, whether it's you're doing marketing, whether you're doing strategy, whether you're doing communications. And the biggest difference is you as the founder, you are the answer. You ask the questions. You have to follow up on all of those answers. And you have to have the ability, and this is a big one for me, you always have to have the ability to adapt to a changing landscape because competition's right around the corner. And you also have to adapt to, well, my model said I was going to do A, but now the marketplace is taking me somewhere else. And now I need to go do B. That's like they
Yes.
call pivoting in the marketplace. As a big company, you have resources in which to be able to anticipate that much quicker than what I just described as a startup or an early stage company. You don't have the same luxury that a big company does. Same set of problems, but a different type of reaction and action, and really a call to action as well. And so when you are a founder of a small company, you have to pivot, and and frankly, it's your pocketbook that you're putting on the line, whereas in big corporations, not so much.
Yes. How do you decide which adjacent markets are worth entering and which to avoid?
Yeah, I think if I had the answer to that one, you and I probably wouldn't be talking here tonight. I'd probably be sitting on some sort of beach and enjoying my life on a beach. But, that's always going to be a tough question to answer. You have
Yeah,
to do the best to navigate your knowledge. You have to seek out resources to help you advance that knowledge. And then you have to have a pretty good pulse of where the market has been, where it is today, and where is it going tomorrow. And those are all
yes.
questions that you have to answer down before you can really make that determination that you're going to go. And some people, and I've seen all kinds of startups who do this, whether it's a mistake or not, I don't think it is. It's just some people handle it differently. Some people don't want to launch their company or their product or whatever it is until it's absolutely perfect. I'm here to tell you, I don't think that exists. I think you have to be confident enough to know that you've done your homework, you've done your research. I'm ready to go, and I am willing to adapt as the market changes. And I'm in an industry today that is testament to that. It is constantly evolving, highly competitive, highly regulated, constantly changing the landscape. And so for a startup, that presents a whole new set of challenges.
I agree 100% what you're saying. And nobody can be perfect. Like we all know, we try to achieve perfection, but at the same time, perfection cannot exist, especially with a word that's going up and down. So you need to just put yourself out there, like you were saying. At the same time, how do you balance short-term revenue goals with long-term brand equity investments?
Well, and now you're getting in an area that I love to talk about, which is really about branding and how does that
Yes.
ultimately work. And I'm actually moderating a panel next week in Las Vegas on that subject on brand messaging, and so alignment of your brand is critical, especially in an industry like the fantasy sports and gaming industry. Very critical because of what I just described. Highly regulated, very competitive. Voice does matter. And guess what are some of the common denominators? Well, that would be trust for a lot of different reasons. Then trust has a lot of different meanings within an industry. And then ultimately, trust equals what? It equals loyalty. If you get the trust of your consumer, you're going to get loyalty. What does loyalty bring you? Brings you acquisition and
Yeah.
retention. And so brand plays a critical role. It's not just a slogan. It's just not a tagline. It is an integral part of your marketing campaign. Marketing is the action, brand is your voice. And so, I think and again, I'm kind of giving you two different dimensions here. One is as a big company who's already established their brand, they might periodically refresh, redesign, maybe recreate in some aspects. Whereas a startup, you're out the gate with your brand, and you got to feel confident in it. And again, you might see how the market reacts, and you might have to change or pivot that. So it's
Yes.
constantly evolving process if you're a new startup. It really is.
I love that. And what's the single most important assumption you test when validating a new business model?
Well, who is the biggest validation point? It's those consumers and those customers who you're trying to target.
$100.
It's it's funny. You can launch something. Your customers are going to tell you how well you did, and they're going to tell you very quickly. And hopefully, you've done a lot of research and homework to understand how they are going to act and react. And I think that's always a difficult balance, but it's one that you always have to keep an eye on and an ear out. It is critical. A lot of companies tend to think they know how a consumer is going to act. Today, in today's world, you've got to know what a consumer wants. This is a consumer that's very different than it was 20 years ago because of the
Yes.
instant information and access to information that those consumers 20 years ago didn't have the way they have it today. You have a very short fuse to make an impression. And trust me, consumers are fickle today and they will tell you how you're doing very quickly.
So when do you think a company should prioritize market share over a profit, and why they should
Well, I,
prioritize
I mean,
market
I'm,
share?
I'm not sure that I would put those in line and say, well, I should prioritize one or the other. I think they have some equal balance to that. There are some great case studies out there around market share and profitability.
Yeah.
And there's, if you look at some of the biggest brands in the world, they will tell you the market share to them is critical. Well, they also will tell you that because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, that profitability is critical. How to measure that is always the critical piece for companies and even startups. How do you measure the effectiveness of being able to do that? And so I don't know, Carl, if there really is one over the other. I think they are equally important, and it really depends on where your priority is. If you're a privately held company, that might be a different model than a publicly held company. Those have very different applications. So I don't know if I can really answer that with any clarity other than they're both very, very important.
Now let's talk a little bit about brand and marketing. How can you translate a high-level brand promise into measurable marketing objective?
Well, again, I think you have to, one, understand your consumer.
Yeah.
You need to understand what they want today. And you have to translate that want into a voice, to your voice. And how, again, I'm going to go back to that whole model of, can you create an emotional connection to your end user by your voice? And your voice is your brand.
True.
Marketing is all marketing. Marketing, if you look at an umbrella, marketing is a big umbrella. Brand is probably the pole that holds that umbrella up. And I think that whatever you're going to do with marketing, your brand has to tell you how to act. It used to be that you used to always hear a term in marketing when you do an advertising campaign or any type of campaign. You got to have a call to action. You got to be able to measure that. If you go out and say something, it's a call to action. I believe that change has made call to engage. And
Yes.
that to engagement today is really all about building what I just talked about earlier, is trust in your brand. Your voice is how you tell that story to your end user. That's going to resonate with them. They're going to trust you very quickly, or they're not. And if they do, all the other things come very well. So it come together very well. Again, it's a fine line, Carla. It is brand and doing it right. If you do it right, you're doing it consistently for a period of time. Brand is not a short-term strategy. It is absolutely a long-term strategy. And you have to understand that. I see too many companies, oh, I got to redesign my brand. I don't think it sounds right. And I can
No?
give you a lot of great brands out there who have made that long-term commitment, and they've done very well with it. And the only reason I'm not going to give maybe the biggest case study that I know is that I'm going to be talking about it in Las Vegas. So I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up my secret.
Oh, come on. You have to give up your secrets on the game changers. So
No,
this was kind of like my next question for you about how like someone can decide when to refresh a brand identity versus
yeah.
when to preserve legacy elements.
Again, I'm going to go back to who really dictates brand. That's your customer.
Yeah.
And a refresh and a redesign really could be aesthetics. Geez, I don't like our color palette, or I don't like the way our font is. Or it could be a message. And I believe that if you're going to refresh or redesign your brand, it needs to tell that story on why you are refreshing it. It's because people are going to go, oh wow, they just changed the color. Why did they do that? Or they just changed their positioning. Why did they do that? They're going to want to know that answer. And so be prepared to be able to tell that answer. I would love to tell the case study that I'm going to talk about in Vegas, but the only reason I can't, I have to share this with you, is that I'm going to engage with the audience to see how much they know. And if I give that
Yes.
out here, someone's already going to know the answer.
It's gonna catch
And,
it.
and my
I
whole
agree.
beginning of my presentation just shot.
Okay, so let's keep it under the umbrella a little bit. But
Okay. Yeah.
you were talking about a lot of mistakes that companies do when they rebrand or when they're launching a rebrand. Common mistakes, like you were saying, some of the colors maybe or something like that. Um, do you agree that some companies are doing rebrands because they're not seeing a good legacy out there, and their brand identity doesn't have a big identity, and that's why they're trying to rebrand. Would sometimes be okay to do that for some companies, or
Well,
it's
yeah,
like
and I
no,
think
no, it's a big mistake?
yeah, I think every company has a rationale behind why they're doing this, whether it's a redesign or refresh. And I could argue that you tell me the difference between a redesign and refresh, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure there is one. It is what it is. You are changing elements of your brand, whether it's a logo or it's a color or it's a message. But I do believe that you're at the end of the day, um, you know, you're doing it because something in your model doesn't feel right to you, and hopefully you're doing that because your customers told you, and your customers told you through could be lack of sales, could be lack of awareness of who you are in a bigger playing in a bigger pond. It could be a whole lot of different reasons why you think you need to do this redesign or this refresh. Or it could be, and I've seen this a lot and I've been involved in this a lot, is you have acquired another company, and how are you bringing that brand into your brand or vice versa? I worked for a company who was bought by a very large company called AT&T, and we had built a
Yes.
pretty good brand. Well, we converted the old brand, the company that I worked for, with the AT&T for obvious reasons. So there's a part of that, but we have to go back out and tell our customers that the Cellular One name is now AT&T and trust us. Now I love it when people say, "Oh, just trust us." I'll tell you a quick this, and you'll love this because this has got academics written all over it. So, I started my career with, I believe, maybe one of the most iconic branding companies in the world. It was then. I still think it has a place today, and that's called Procter and Gamble. And
Yes.
one of the things that you learn in college, if you're a marketing, I got my marketing degree, is that there are 4 P's of marketing. Everybody can recite the 4 P's of marketing. It's price, it's product, it's promotion, and it's place. Place being distribution.
Yes.
P&G will tell you the first day you join and you go to work and you go to their P&G University in Cincinnati, Ohio, they will tell you that there's 5 P's of marketing, not 4. Can you tell me what the 5th P is? I can tell you very quickly what it is. And it has a lot to do with branding messaging. It's called positioning. How are you positioning your brand in the marketplace? Because customers are going to want to know that. They're going to want to be able to
Yes.
trust you. They're going to want to have an emotional connection, and that way it will build loyalty. I worked on a brand in Procter and Gamble called Crest toothpaste, one of the most loyal brands out there for years and years and years.
And
And
still,
when you build trust and you build loyalty, tell me, I bet if you talk to a lot of people today, I can't believe we're talking about toothpaste on a sports store.
I know.
We
That's
are.
right.
How many people actually today have switched their toothpaste over the last 5 or 10 years? Who maybe one of the most loyal products you have, and
If
it's
you're
funny
loyal,
because
you're loyal.
yeah, and so loyalty matters. And guess what? That's a consistent message right there. Crest is all now it's modified itself. It's gotten technology. They've done a lot of things with we can prevent cavities, we can whiten your teeth, we can do it all. Well, 25, 30 years ago, that was just, hey, this is good toothpaste, and dentists recommend it. So use us. And
I love it. It's
so
crazy.
I laugh about that today, but toothpaste is one of those things that you always very rarely change out. Anyway, we
Yeah.
digress.
I agree. I want to be respectful for you about the brand and marketing. So I'm not gonna push it and ask more questions in that because of you like want to talk that next week. But let's go to a little bit of go to market and launch execution before we go to fantasy football,
Yeah.
because I want people to know that there is a different person behind the fantasy football part as well, and you are launching something new in the community that can help a lot of people market their own products at some point. So let's talk about the essential steps in a go-to market plan for a first to market product. What are they?
Well, again, it varies from product to product. What are you launching? Are you launching
Yes.
a physical product, whether that be, something tangible in your hand? Are you marketing an app out there that says, oh, this app can tell you this and that, and it can help you do this and that? Or are you marketing a service, something that I can help you with? So depending on what you're marketing, that has a very, very different impact on how you go to market. Because again, who are you targeting? What problem are you solving for those each marketplaces? For a product, I'm solving this. I think I can make a better widget than this guy or this person's doing today. If I'm a service, I'm going to provide you the best service, and I assure you that you'll be successful with my service. If I'm providing
Yes.
you an app, I'm going to give you the best app. You can navigate through it, ease of use, and you'll be very productive and efficient. Now that's old school, but some of those same principles exist today. I would imagine that if you talk to anybody in the AI industry today, you
Yeah.
might hear a lot of that same old school stuff, but in a very, very different dimension. It's technology has changed a lot of what we do and how we do it. But in a go to market, that's also a critical piece. Technology has evolved to the point where consumers expect you to be as much of a technology savvy company as anything else, whether you're a service, whether you're a product, or whether you are just putting together an app on the internet. So it's a interesting environment. And today it's only getting more interesting. If you go look at the Super Bowl, if you go look at the Super Bowl that we just finished up, 4 days ago?
Yes.
So here's a stat for you. I think I read on Monday that $100 million was spent by AI companies in ads on the Super Bowl.
You're
$100 million.
kidding me.
Now, that being said, the cost for a 30-second ad these days is now 8 to 9 million. Where when I was doing it, I could get a Super Bowl ad for $1.5 million, and that would have been a bargain today. But today it's 8 to 10, and there were 10 separate AI platforms talking about their services. And here's the interesting part: they just spent $10 million, and I'm not sure that anybody could recite right now who are the 10 companies. Well, maybe you could, but there might be a few there. But that's
I don't even know who the companies are.
yeah, but I
That's
guarantee
insane.
I
That's
know, but I
insane.
guarantee you know that there was a Bud Light commercial, and you know
Yes.
that there was a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, and there was a Budweiser Clydesdale commercial.
It's food. Come on. We're going to know about that.
So
Food is always attracting people, like from the beginning of everything. Do you think by saying all of this about AI, Scott, that AI might take over a lot of stuff that we are used to at some point?
that's a loaded question, and I think what you're asking is can will AI take away the human element? I don't think that occurs. I think what AI does, it provides efficiency, scalability, and I think in some cases consistency, because you
Yeah,
can use AI to be consistent in how you operate. You can use AI to be extremely efficient. Hey, I'll be the first to tell you, I use ChatGPT all the time. It is a lifesaver for me. I'll write a memo to somebody. I'll write it, and I'll do a paragraph, and I'll say to ChatGPT, "Can you make this
really.
sound better, but don't make it sound like it's AI driven?" And they do, and they're pretty good at it. And then I go back and edit it anyway. But it made me more efficient, made me think about it. And I think AI is going to change a lot of the efficiencies and the scalability. And you remember I talked about consistency. You've got to have
Yes.
a brand that's going to be consistent. I think AI will allow you to be like that and do that.
Yes.
And it's I believe this is the person of one opinion here that AI is maybe the most transformative technology we've seen since the internet launched. I really believe that.
Agreed. Agreed. But how much like is too much
Yeah,
with AI?
yeah, that's a question to still to be determined, and everybody's jumping in on it, and everything from the biggest players out there. And if you think about the markets, the kind of capital spending that they're doing, every time a publicly traded company such as a Microsoft, such as any of the big, NVIDIA, all the investors look at how much money are you going to invest in AI? And they look at that now. And that's a big common denominator in some of these earnings calls or these big companies, because they want to know, investors want to know, how much are you willing to invest in this? Because if you're willing to invest in that, and will this bubble ever burst? Or is this thing that's just going to grow? Is the pie just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger? I don't think anybody knows those answers yet, but it's a fascinating technology. And I'm one to embrace technology wherever I think it's good. I do believe there's some good things there, and AI is happening all over the fantasy sports and gaming industry. It's happening.
I know.
All
I
over the place.
heard that nowadays people are asking AI who is going to win,
That's right.
and you are having the answers at some point. But that's insane. Like you're replacing a lot of people, a lot of industries that work super hard to come to that place. So again, we don't know how much AI is too much at some point. And
I think we will know that answer over time, and I think that's a question that's being answered a lot.
yes,
And I'm not sure that anybody has the truest form of an answer yet.
no,
Um, I lived in the dot-com burst and bubble and explosion. It was dot-com was I was right in the heart of that, and stock valuations were going through the roof, and it just burst. It's and
wow.
it and it and bad. Yet there's still companies out there that can tell that story that survived. And I think there's a little bit of that happened with the internet, a little bit of that happened now with AI, and I think the story's yet to be told.
Yeah.
And but I always look at who wants to dip their toes into that water, and boy, there's a lot of companies dipping their toe in that water, and some of even the smaller companies who believe they need it. And I think if you're going to compete in a bigger marketplace and a bigger ecosystem, efficiency is going to be critical. So maybe you do use AI to be more efficient, and that gets to that point of scalability.
I love that. I love that AI can cut time as well,
Sure.
and it can help a lot of people. I agree with that 100%. But I do believe using it too much, it will not, like your brain will not be working anymore, and you're gonna be using AI and that's it. So we might lose
Yeah,
that
remember when I said to you in
that
the
part.
beginning, remember when I said to you in the beginning of this conversation is that a good brand will create an emotional connection.
Yes,
I'm not sure
emotional
that an
connection,
AI good brand
100%.
is going to create that emotional connection. Your voice, your brand voice, how do they create that if it's AI generated? Problem
True.
is people don't know the difference between what was generated by AI or something else. So there it becomes the challenge. And there's all kinds of chatter about it, all kinds of studies going right now around AI, and everything that you just described is good. Is it going to take away the human element of it? And I think the answer is to be determined. But
Yes.
I think we are seeing effects of that. There are so many data centers being built these days, and it's an interesting time. Interesting time.
It is an interesting time. I agree
Yeah.
with you. So let's talk a little bit about fantasy football. And how did you start first with fantasy football and what draw you to it?
Yeah, so when I launched my little company about 9 months ago, I've told this story many times, and I'll share it with your audience as well. I started playing fantasy football in what I will call the fax era, where everything was faxed over. A lineup was faxed over 3 days before games even started, and that was it. I didn't have any knowledge of what players might not play on Sunday, and I was faxing over my lineup on Thursday night. And then we would go to the USA Today on Monday and read the stats, and we would have to, by hand, we would determine who won. Anyway, I got involved in 1989 with a group of advertising executives in Seattle, Washington. I was one of their clients, and they said, "Hey, we're starting this thing called fantasy football. Do you want to play?" Well, I grew up in sports. I was in a sports family from the time I can remember, and played sports, participated, and so sports was in my DNA, and I did it in my sleep and loved it. still, and so anything that had anything new attached to sports, I was willing to listen. And of course, these are guys that I knew and gals that I knew that were friends of mine because I was doing business with them. And I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. Little did I know that one invitation would turn into what I'm doing today. And it was
Wow.
really became a 30 some odd year love affair with fantasy sports. And I played fantasy baseball, but fantasy football was always the affinity that I was drawn to. Um, and 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 I've been doing this since '89. And you talk about changes in technology. Wow, it's when you could get online real time to see your team perform real time, that really changed the landscape and it changed user and viewership and engagement and emotional connection that I was talked about. There's a study out there, and I'm not going to quote the numbers, but NFL will tell you that it was, speaking of game changer, it was a game changer for the NFL in terms of participation and their popularity. Now, NFL is pretty popular without it, but fantasy sports and fantasy football changed that ecosystem tremendously. So that's how I got
That's
started. Literally got
crazy.
started in 1980, in 1989. By the way, that league that I started, that was one of 10, still exists today.
You're
Still exists
kidding
today.
me.
Yeah, we just finished our season about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah, still now
Wow.
it's not the same 10. There's only three of us that are the original 10, but
But
I'm one of
still,
them. Yeah, we're still yep. And and
that's
and
amazing,
and none of
Scott.
us live. There's only two guys live in Seattle. The rest of us are scattered all over the place. But think about that. 30 years
Wow.
ago, you wouldn't be able to do a draft
No,
the way we could
all
do it
around.
now. Yeah. So that getting involved like that one league turned into two, which turned into five, which turned into 10, which turned into 20. And I just got hooked. Now, I'll keep in mind, I'm also trying to advance my marketing career, and those take some hours to do. And so on the side, I was very fond of fantasy sports and played. And all my friends would tell you that they knew that I would talk about anything company related. I talk about, but also happy to talk about fantasy sports too. And
Yes.
so I was able to balance the two, thank goodness. But I always kept an eye out in the fantasy sports industry, and a lot of different things. I looked at a lot of different opportunities. None of them that really made sense to me to, quit my big corporate job to do that. But I always stayed in touch with the people. And when I retired from corporate America, I said, what can I do other than sit around and do nothing, which I'm not going to do? What do I love to do? And my wife looked at me and says, you know what you love to do. I said, yep, I do. And so that's what started my pursuit of how can I impact within the fantasy sports industry and the gaming industry. Got involved with the FSGA, which really was a huge stepping stone for me
I
to
love
help
it.
me determine that there is a need out there for some where I can potentially have an impact.
Something big.
And that's what I'm trying to pursue now. And that story is to be determined, but right now I'm having a whole lot of fun in that industry and in helping, as I said, our whole sole intent is to help early stage companies be successful in an industry that is constantly evolving, highly competitive, like I said, and highly regulated. And so
Love that.
that is my whole passion right now. I love
I
it.
love that. I love that so much, Scott. Like when I first got that email from Tom,
Yeah.
I was so impressed and surprised, and I didn't know like you in person. I never met you in person, and I was so intrigued when he sent me the bio and like you wanted to be on my show. You are a big name in the community, and you wanted to be on the Game Changers. So this was such an honor for me, honestly. I did ask about you, Scott Fish, on to be exact, and I'm like, do you know someone whose name is Scott Hoyt? And he's like, of course, I'm gonna see him in Las Vegas next week. What can you tell me about Scott Fish, and can you tell me about Las Vegas next week?
So yeah, let me give you my Scott Fish story. And I interviewed Scott Fish in Chicago in July at the FSGA.
Yes.
And I've known Scott for several years because when I interviewed him, I said, I'm honored to share the mic with you because it's like the second coming of Elvis.
Love it.
Scott Fish is like the Elvis because when he walks into a room, everyone migrates to him. Now he's a big stature. He's a big guy, but that's not why
Yes.
they love Scott Fish because of what he has done in this industry and how he went about it. And he is the
Yes.
most genuine, likable guy, knowledgeable, funny, and he does this all for charity. And to
100%.
me, there's just not too many people like Scott Fish, and I I I think the world of him. There's a part of me. I don't get intimidated by many people. I almost get intimidated by Scott Fish, but I consider him a good friend, and I will be. I went to his first draft of the year last year in Vegas. He always does it in Vegas every year. I will go and participate this year. I'll see him, I'm sure, in Philadelphia for the FSGA, and I think that's what you asked me as well is FSGA. I'm in Las Vegas next week. FSGA does their winter conference always in Vegas, usually in February, right after the Super Bowl, and then they do a summer conference this year. It's in Philadelphia, and that will be in July. I'm intimately involved in the FSGA. I serve on two advisory committees. And again, with the sole intent of growing organically this industry, and anything I can do to impact the industry, I will do that. And the FSGA is basically a good vehicle for where I can hang my hat on and try to make an impact for some of these companies. And that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing, Scott. I love that. You should come to Boston too. So I heard Scott might come to Boston this year. So you should be in Boston.
Yeah. So Scott, he does the Scott Fish Bowl. What's really unique about that whole thing is, and we talked about the whole charity thing, but what's really
Yes.
is he's got a cult following because people all every year he
I
changes.
agree.
You think about this, he changes the scoring every year, and
Yes.
and the anticipation. He's a marketing genius if you think about it.
Yes,
Trying to get
100%.
you talk about it getting an emotional connection with your community. The way he does this, he says, "Listen, I'm gonna change up the scoring every year, and everybody speculates on what's the scoring going to be this year.
Goes
And
crazy.
mind blowing, and and then and then he announces it, and people go crazy. And
Yes.
he's got some of the most unique scoring you'll ever see in a fantasy league. And it doesn't matter whether you've played it for 1 year or 20 years. It is so much fun. And in the community and the people that you meet at all these different cities is so cool. And he tries to go many of these cities as he can. I think he did, I want to say he did 17 last year. I might be wrong. Then don't quote me on that number. Scott, please. I apologize if it's more. But I know it's a lot, and I know he can't physically be at all of them. So he relies on people like yourself, if you want to do one, to coordinate it. And
I will. I
uh,
want to bring it to Connecticut, and I spoke with Scott about it. I'm super excited that it's gonna happen, hopefully soon. So, we need to talk about a lot of stuff, how I'm gonna manage it and stuff like that.
it's a
Hopefully
lot of
next year.
Carl. It's a lot
It
of
is a
fun,
lot
and
of work and
people
and
just
fun, but
people will
I
come to that,
love it.
and they will have so much fun. And win, lose, or draw, it is an experience. And just the way that he has marketed this thing is brilliant,
Yes.
absolutely brilliant. And his designer, the guy, and I can't remember his name, and Scott's going to kill me for this, but he designs a lot of their T-shirts and their hats. He is
Yes.
so he is so talented, but he's very
Yes.
quiet. He's kind of
Yes.
a quiet person.
He was in Boston last
Yeah,
year. I
he
forgot his name as well, so
yeah
I
he's
respectfully.
brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant. And
Awesome.
and if you get him to smile, that's a great thing because he's got a great sense of humor.
I
And
think I did.
yeah, I'm sure you did. And so
Because I did go live from Boston last year at the Game Changers as well, and I spoke with him and I spoke with a lot of people. So we're gonna have a segment as well coming next month, all about Scott Fishbowl. And I'm super excited about it. The Game Changers Scott Fishbowl segment to hype Scott Fishbowl because this is really important for the community. As a Zumba instructor myself, and I do a lot of events like Scott does. Um, smaller than Scott. It's not as big as Scott events, but I do love my community, and I do a lot of charity events, and I'm super excited for the opportunity in Connecticut as well. I
Well,
cannot wait for
I
it.
would tell anybody, even any of your listeners, is that if you like fantasy sports or whether you don't like it, go to Fantasy Cares and donate. And
Yes,
because what he does for these communities is again the most rewarding part about it, and he builds that community like no other. There is no other tournament, league, whatever you want to call it, out there that does what he does. And
agreed.
I have the utmost respect for what he's accomplished, and
I
somebody that
agree.
I follow very closely whenever I can.
Me too. I look up to him a lot.
He's Elvis.
So yeah,
Remember, he's Elvis.
he
He's Elvis.
is. He's Alphas in the
He's
building.
the Elvis of fantasy sports in my mind.
100%. I'm gonna call him Elvis from now on.
Well, he's gonna kill me for that one because I did that on the podcast last year when I saw him in Chicago. I
I'll
introduced him
text
as
him later. I
Elvis.
tell him, Elvis, how are you tonight? I love that.
Yeah,
Scott, you told me that you went to the expo last year
I
and
did.
I missed you.
Yeah,
So are you going this year as well to the expo? Because I want to make it happen. I want to see you face to face and give you that hug.
I will be there. I will absolutely be there. I wouldn't miss that. Enjoyed it last year. Again, we I keep talking about this term community, and there's no bigger community than the fantasy sports industry, and the Fantasy Expo is just one very large element of that. You have everybody there from creators, companies, and just everyday fantasy football fanatics. And
Yes.
there's drafts everywhere you turn. There's a little party everywhere you go. People are always talking about fantasy football, and you can't not have a conversation without having a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. And Bob does such a great job with that. Again, he's another one of those icons who knows how to put
Yes.
on an event. And then he's
Him
from
and his
Cannes, so
family.
yeah, he's from Cannes, so that makes it kind of unique because it's the Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame, perfect place.
Yeah,
But
that's
I will be there. I
amazing.
will promise you, I will be there.
I love that. So let's make it happen. Let's see each
We
other
will.
there.
And if you're going to do a live podcast there, I want to come on.
I do every single year. I do 100%. So we're on. We're gonna
Hey,
be on.
speaking of podcasts, I don't want to do a shameless self promotion here, but I just started a new podcast with my
That's your space to do
yeah.
your own
Uh,
promotion.
I just started it about a month and a half ago. We have produced three and dropped three. We don't go as bold as you do, Carla, because you do live and we don't. We tape ours and then we edit it and then we drop it. But we have dropped now three episodes and we've got several lined up. And but it's called Under the Hoodie. And
I love it.
yeah, and Under the Hoodie has really two connotations around that name. One is if you kind of break out the word hoodie and there's under the hood, it's a term that is used commonly on how to examine things a little bit deeper than you normally would. Has an analytical spin to it. And
Yes.
so that is designed to be able to go under the hood with startups, early stage companies to tell their story. These are people who are making things happen now, and they've got stories and journeys that can help other small companies learn from their lessons. And
True.
so it's really designed to help everybody in the early stage startup phase. And these are brilliant people that I think can offer that assistance. So we started that process. And then there's another technical, which is the hoodie part of it. And that is anybody who knows me, and they're going to laugh, yeah, always in a hoodie. So there's where the hoodie came from. And so that's kind of how the name evolved. But in addition, though, I think the other thing is in addition to doing these B2B stories, which are kind of cool, we're also going to be doing an analytical fantasy sports series. We started one. We started one last week out of the clear blue. Howard Bender agreed to come on and do a Super Bowl preview with me, and he is an iconic voice in
I
fantasy
love
sports.
Howard.
And Howard is a great guy, a good friend of mine. And so he came on. We chopped it up for an hour on talking about the Super Bowl and the fantasy season and behind us, and we had a great time. And so we'll be doing a lot more of that as well.
Did you see Howard's pictures from where he live right now in Alaska and the
We
snow?
talked about that. If you go listen to the podcast, I encourage everyone to go to the podcast. We talk about Juneau,
Yes.
Alaska, and it's funny because Howard's a celebrity in my mind. And I said,
Yes,
"Now,
he is.
does,
Agree.
do people in Juneau know who you are, Howard?" He said, "No, not yet." I said, "Well, eventually you're going to become Norm when you walk into a bar or a restaurant. You're going to walk in and people are going, Norm, there's." He loves it there. He absolutely loves it there.
I love Howard and I miss him these couple
Great
years
guy.
that he didn't come to the expo. I really hope that he will make it at some point. He's
Yeah, I
such
was hoping to
an
see him in
icon as well.
Yeah, I was hoping to see him in Vegas, but he just can't make that work, and hopefully we'll see him
Can't
at the
as well.
expo. But he's a great guy and just you know probably a better human being than he is even a great analyst.
Yeah, he is. Like there's a lot of people at the fantasy sports that I've met. I love being surrounded by them. They are just amazing human beings, like
And
you said.
Carl, what the interesting thing about our industry is that, you see this a lot in the FSGA is, we've talked a lot tonight about community and fantasy industry and the gaming industry are big community players. But you go to the FSGA or any of these events you go to, and you're sitting across maybe one of your competitors. And
Yes.
what's interesting about that is these people all have such mutual respect because they have grown this industry collectively together. And so there's this sense of unity, and there's none of this, well, I'm not gonna, I compete with you. I'm not gonna tell you anything. It's not
Yeah.
like that at all. And that's what is so impressive. And that comes out a lot when you go to attend an FSGA conference like the one I'm attending next week in Vegas. It's a great community.
I love that because when you have intellectual people, you don't have that anymore. They all share their ideas. They all want to better themselves and they want to better the people surrounding them. Because when you are successful, they will be successful at the same time, which is
There's a great
really,
internet. I just saw this on someone just chimed in and said all Howard has to do is it won't take him long for him and for everybody to know who he's the old baby a few times, and Alaska will be able to forget, won't be able to forget him. I absolutely agree with that one. Howard has that dynamic personality. He loves everybody, and everybody will love him. So absolutely.
that's my dog Orf, the one I was talking to you before
Yeah.
the episode.
Doug, we will talk. Let's talk, Doug.
Yes, yes. I'll put him on after the show so you guys can talk together a little bit as well.
We love to do that.
Um, I just love that you're sharing, ideas and everything about marketing and fantasy football. Talking a little bit about fantasy football, like I did hear a lot about the phone call to see if you won or not, and waiting for everything the next day to see if anyone won. I never heard the facts that you're talking about. So talking about the facts and then talking about today fantasy football,
Well,
which
yeah, I
one
mean,
you
yeah,
prefer?
yeah. There's so many things in between that with the way it is today versus the way it was then. So I'm going to
Yeah.
give you what it was like in '89 and what it is now in 2025 or 2026. '89, you had a draft. You did a draft with your friends, and you found one of those whiteboards or one of those flip charts, and you go round by round, and you would tell people, we'd write it down, and then whoever was the commissioner, he would go in and send everybody a spreadsheet. Says, okay, here's your team, and then the rules were simply this: by Thursday, and keep in mind back then there weren't a lot of Thursday night games going on. There was typically Sunday games and a Monday night game. It wasn't a Thursday night game when all these other games were on. So by Thursday night, you had to fax in your starting lineup. And today, you wouldn't be able to even put a lineup in on Thursday night because there's so many injury reports still to be determined. And you might set a lineup in '89. And by the way, two of the players you have in your starting lineup aren't even playing on Sunday.
Oh my God.
and you can't change it. You cannot change it. The commissioner would say, "Hey,
Agree. Yes.
you cannot change it. Yeah, this is who you start with." And anyway, so the industry and the technology evolved into being able to determine how to get this on the internet real time. And that's what started all of these analytical resources, all these apps out there that we know today. And there's so many of them, and some really good ones and some new ones. And today, you can be watching on TV a game. You can be watching on another screen your team, and you could see a pass get completed for 40 yards down, and you got that player who received that pass. Oh, I just got 2 points. How that? And literally within seconds, literally within seconds. That's how it's evolved. That's and frankly, it's changed the gaming side as well. If you think about that, the gaming side has really evolved with the technology, and so and I think that's why the regulation environment is always a very tricky one to talk about. But fantasy sports has evolved so much, and the popularity of fantasy sports
Yes.
it was really the age of technology that really determined the popularity that we enjoy today. Without it,
Get
I
it
don't think
legalized.
you would not have the numbers you have today, and they're astronomical. The numbers are astronomical, and you wouldn't have those numbers without the technology. And so that's why I go back to the old AI. Where does AI play a role in this? And it probably does at some point, and it could advance what we're doing tomorrow or the next year. So stay tuned. But I love it because there's so many new things out there, so many tools out there, and I don't want to tell about all the tools that I love because I don't want to be preferential to somebody but there are some great tools out there for even a
Agreed.
startup player who doesn't know much about fantasy football who can learn very quickly. And I play in a league. I commissioned a league with my friends and family. I started out with just my friends and family, and
Yes.
my and that league's been in existence for 9 years. My wife never played fantasy football, and she won year one or year two. My daughter didn't know much about fantasy football until and she met her husband, and he was a big fantasy football player, and she became a huge fantasy football player. She won. I've never won that league. I have never won that league, my own family league.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
and I'm telling you, it's just so much fun, and technology allows you to be a lot more knowledgeable about what you're doing and have fun with it.
I love it. Maybe I need to bring your wife and daughter on the podcast as well. I would love to
Well,
talk
my
fantasy football
my
too.
daughter is a fanatic fantasy sports player, huge.
I would
She
love
is
that.
like, I guess, like father, like daughter, right? So,
Yes.
in fact, my son-in-law, her husband, he and I are big partners in a couple of high stakes leagues in Vegas that we do every year, and in Vegas in September, the opening weekend, and then NFL, which, by the way, it's a family trip. My entire
Yes.
family goes out there every September for that weekend of games that start the NFL season. And my son-in-law and I, we do a couple fantasy leagues, and then we watch football for every night because now there's a game on Friday night, Thursday night game, Friday night game, Sunday and Monday. It's great. It's something
I
we've been
love
doing
it.
for years. Something we've been doing for years.
It's important when you have the family surrounding like what you love. I mean,
Yeah,
you told me at the beginning that your wife told you you know what you love,
yeah,
do.
yeah.
And that
She
support makes
yeah.
the like everything worth it. I love that, Scott. I love it really,
Well,
really.
I'll tell you another last story here. A quick one is that when we got married, she knew how passionate I was about fantasy sports. I knew
Yes.
how passionate she was around her drive to cure breast cancer because her mother passed away from breast cancer, and she
So sorry.
participated in a lot of these charity walks. And
Yeah.
and so in our vows, she vowed to support my fantasy sports passion, and I vowed to support her breast cancer drive.
Yeah.
And it's in our vows, and people laughed at them. That's what we did. It was great. It was great. So
No, it's just to support each other is the best thing you can do. That's the
yeah,
goal,
yeah,
right? That's the
it is.
goal in every relationship. I love that for you, Scott. Um, Tell me a little bit, how do you stay ahead of regulations changes that could affect your business model?
Well, that's again, I got to go back to if somebody can solve that one, It's going to
Yeah.
make life a lot easier for everybody because it's always changing and always evolving. And
Agree?
and people are in state by state, they're changing the rules as we speak.
Yes.
Arizona wants to tax fantasy sports more so than they have in the past because they recognize the revenue that they can achieve from that. Um,
Yeah.
so every state is different, and I'm not going to get into a political environment, but I think the best way I would say this is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, is I always say follow the money, and that's where you're going to find regulators in your backyard. Regulators always want to make sure that there's compliance, which is the right thing to do, but there are also states are going to look at it. How can we make money on this as well? State revenue, and that's the right, and that's how they run their states. But I will tell you this is fantasy sports and gaming, there used to be a very distinct line, and now those lines are kind of blurred. They kind of go together, but they still have very distinct definitions. Fantasy
Yes.
sports is a game of skill, and this is by the
It is.
courts made that decision, where gaming is a game of luck. And so that's why the regulators are a lot tougher on the gaming side as they are on the fantasy side. But those lines are starting to get blurred a little bit. But it's also gained the popularity. A lot of your common gaming players are now fantasy players, and vice versa. And then there's this new thing, and I know we don't have time to talk about this. And then there's this thing called
Half time.
prediction markets. And prediction markets is another thing that's going to be talked about a lot in Vegas next week. And I know there's some very smart people going to talk about that. Anxious to hear, because I don't think we've heard the end of that one, not at all. There's a lot of big players in that chasing, a lot of money.
Yeah. That's crazy. I know that in some places and some states, it's legalized, but in Connecticut, it's legalized, but not legalized at the same time. You have to go out of the state to pay your money and then come back and then play in the state. It's crazy. It's
Yeah, because they have
crazy.
geolocation technology. They'll be able to, if you're on your phone or on your laptop, they're going to be able
Yes.
to know exactly where you are, and they'll say you're not allowed to play this, and that's the gaming side of it. But if you played, like I live in South Carolina, I cannot gamble on DraftKings or FanDuel. I can't.
No.
But I can play fantasy sports, and that's very big. Those are two different points, and there's a lot of states that have the same thing. Where I think we'll constantly see this evolve. It's
Yes.
always seems to be shifting. The needle seems to get moved in different directions all the time. And remember, I talked about at the very beginning, when you are a startup, an early stage company, the one thing that they are always looking at in our industry is, what do the regulators say about this business that I'm about to launch? Am I going to find myself in the right place and not find myself in the eye of the storm around the regulators? And I think those are fair questions. Those are very fair questions.
Yes. How do you recruit senior marketers who can both think with strategy and execute tactic?
well, I mean, in terms of recruiting, I think a lot of that is a sixth sense that you have. If you've done it as
Yes.
many years as some people have, you know it, and you could. It's funny when I would interview marketing people to work for in my company, I could tell you in 5 minutes whether or not it'd be a good fit, and not just be a skill, but also is it a good cultural fit? Meaning, will they fit well in the culture that we have? And
Yes.
and so it isn't so much about the academics of everything. It's about how you also become a team player. How do you collaborate? How do you engage? And you can find that out very quickly. And I don't ask the traditional. I never ask the traditional resume questions. What do you want to do 5 years from now? What do you want to do 10 from you? Because I honestly, I couldn't answer that question. I mean, I don't know. I want to continue what I'm doing right now in 5 years. Maybe I won't. I don't know. So yeah, how do you expect somebody else to answer that question? But I never took the traditional path of interviewing people. But I think there is an inherent skill set with marketers
Yes.
that as a marketer, and you see it and you feel it.
I that's amazing. I mean, not everybody can do that. And that's such an amazing answer for me.
Yeah.
So let's continue with that and tell me, how do you assess whether a team needs more like a generalist or specialist at a given stage?
Well, I think if you're a consultant,
Yeah.
let's take a consultant role because that's what I do today. A good consultant will ask a lot of questions, and they will ask exactly those type of things. What is it that you think you're missing? Show me why you think it's missing. Tell me what that looks like. Tell me what success in your eyes looks like. And when you get the cumulative answers of all that, then you can put together, kind of a very step by step tactical plan that ultimately leads to a more long term strategic plan. But unless you can get some of that blocking and tackling done in the beginning, you're gonna find yourself at a dead end in the long term, and you're gonna constantly be going through that circle of how did I mess that up? And so you have to ask a lot of questions, and I think you got to ask people to be honest in their assessment of what is it they really ultimately need and what are they trying to accomplish.
So being the lead, sometimes we have different opinions. How can you handle divergent strategic opinions among like senior leaders, and how can you be more constructive for them instead of like telling them no if they
Yeah.
have a good opinion in that?
Yeah. I've always taken the approach that I'm only as smart as the people that work with me. And so my opinion isn't the only opinion. And if you
And
and that remember I talked about being collaborative, you
yes,
have to be willing, whether you're a leader or whether you're not the leader, you have to be willing to accept diverse opinions that maybe not necessarily you even thought about and explore those. It's okay. It's okay as a leader to fail. I think you build character and you learn more about, and then that's a common cliche people talk about. But I do. I have learned probably more about what I haven't done as the things that I have done. You learn a lot more from that. And most of the time I've learned because those people that I've worked with have shown me that way. I'm a big believer that you can hire a team that's smarter than you, you're going to do well. And
I
then
agree 100%.
let them do their job. Let them do their job. Let them let them stub their toe. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Did you ever have any signal that tells you it's time to change the leadership team or bring in an outside expertise per se?
Um, leadership team sounds plural to me. There's always going to be an opportunity that you think there's, probably, some challenges you have on individual contributions. And you have that everywhere, and that's okay. But I think when you look at the broader picture of what you want to accomplish, I think you have to look as the team as a collective team. Do you have the right type of resources? Do you need different types of resources because the market has shifted? And sometimes, and I can tell you that has happened a lot. And the competitive landscape's changed, and so
Yes.
you need this skill set and the old skill set that we had probably doesn't map out. But that doesn't mean those people are null and void. You put them in another area that I think they could be successful in. So I don't know if it's a collective individual. It's more of a collective strategy of,
Yes.
of making sure you manage your talent as opposed to individual. Individual talent is always going to be about performance, and performance is certainly determined in different ways from different people in different companies.
Agreed. Scott, it's over an hour, but I do still have a couple questions to ask
Fire
you
away.
before I let you go. What do you think emerging customer behavior do you believe is most likely to create a new category of products, especially that not customers, consumer behavior, especially that now we have a lot of like new consumers that some people are targeting those consumers honestly, but at the same time, you have like me, you have you, which is the older consumers, but they're targeting the younger ones. Do you think that's a good strategy from some people to create a new category of products for them, or you think that they need to keep believing in their like older consumers, if I may say.
Yeah, and I think you're getting to a topic called differentiation, and how do you
Yes,
differentiate your offerings to match who you're targeting? And
which we
if
have it
you're
in teaching.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's lots of companies who have addressed all the different generational acronyms that we have out there. Some have done them well, some have not. That doesn't make them good or different. And they said, well, geez, I don't think this target audience is right for us, and so we'll pivot. If you remember in the very beginning, I said your ability to be
Perfect.
able to pivot in
Yes,
a changing marketplace is going to be to your advantage. And how fast you pivot and how well you pivot is going to determine your success. And that is so true today because in the age of instant information that's available to all of us, I don't care what generation you are, if you want to engage in that information, it is at your fingertip always. And that will drive a consumer's level of activity. And certainly it will build, that'll build a different portfolio of thoughts that you're going to get from somebody who is new to the marketplace or somebody who has been there for 40 or 50 years. And when your voice might act differently to somebody who is 25 versus somebody who is 55. And there's a lot of different industries that you could make case studies for. But I think at the end of the day, unless you know how to address that addressable market and do it well, then I think you're going to continue to dig yourself a deeper hole and not be able to get out of it unless you can pivot to a marketplace that is willing to accept. If you recall, I mean, it's all about being consistent, and if you can be consistent and develop that emotional connection, you're going to build trust, and
yes,
you're going to build loyalty. That's all that matters. I don't care if you're 18 or 88.
I agree. Scott, what's one question that you want people to ask you, but they never ask?
Wow. That's a great question. That's a great question. A lot of times, I think when you've had a long storied career, I'd always love people to ask me, everyone wants to know what are your biggest successes? I can probably tell you, but no one wants to know what my biggest failures were. I'm happy to share that. People don't ask that, and sometimes, as I said a little bit ago, is I probably learned more from those than I have successes, and I got a few of those. I can absolutely tell you a few of those. I know we don't have time to do that, but another time I'll share some of those.
100%. One more question I
Yep.
ask all my guests before I let you go. And that question is, did you ever do anything, maybe at an early age, or something that maybe was a secret or something that you never spoke of to anybody before, and you want to share it on the Game Changers tonight?
Gosh, geez, Carl, I didn't. That is putting you on the spot. I'm usually pretty good about on the spot. Um, I don't know if there's. I don't know if secret's the right word. It's kind of maybe more of an embarrassing thing that I did, and it's only because my mom wanted me to. Is I was the I lived in a little town in the Midwest in Illinois, and every year they had the 4th of July parade, and the community would have a king and a queen and a prince and a princess. And the king and the queen were the teenagers, and the prince and the princess were the 12 to 13-year-olds. I was
Yes.
the frickin' prince of this town and had to drive in this car with another girl on the back seat with me, and I'm waving my hand as the prince of this community. And I got my mom
I
has
love
that
it.
my mom has that picture somewhere, and my mom has passed away, so I don't know if I could ever
I'm so
find it, but
sorry.
it is etched in
Please
my
find that picture.
it's etched in my brain. I remember it well. And here's the interesting thing is I remember the girl's name. She's a friend of mine today. Her name is Nancy Frazier. Now it's Nancy Swanson because
Oh
her
my
name,
God.
but I know her name. And we were great friends in 7th grade and became friends. And so I don't share that story too often because it's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not. I love it. I
You're
was
on,
Miss
you're on, you're on,
Photogenic in
you're
my country. So
and here I was. I'm playing all these sports, and you're a mom's boy. I said, well, okay, I'm a mom's boy, proud of it. Fire away.
Yes, we are proud of our mamas. May her
Yeah, oh,
soul
yeah.
rest in peace, Scott. Scott, I cannot thank you for tonight. I had maybe 100 plus questions. I didn't go through all of them, but I wanted to, but time wise, we couldn't. Definitely, definitely, definitely. I will be honored if you can hop on another episode with me on the Game Changers for sure.
Carla, thank you. I mean, it's your reputation precedes you. You
Thank
are
you.
very fun to be around. You're very intelligent. Got a lot of respect for what you do and how you do it. And I would come on anytime you want me to. It'd be my honor.
My honor as well. Thank you so much, Scott. Before I wrap up, can you tell everybody the best ways to connect with you online, where they can follow your work? And please, if you can tell us more about your podcast as well and everything that you want to share with our audience tonight.
Yeah. So if you want to check out who Fantasy Sports Strategies is, go to the website www.fantasysportsstrategies.com. We are on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn under Fantasy Sports Strategies. We're on Facebook. We're on our X is FSS Strats. You can find us on X, and I'm very proud about Under the Hoodie, which is kind of a sub brand of Fantasy Sports Strategies. If you go on our website, you can actually do a drop down screen specifically to Under the Hoodie and see all the podcasts that we've done to that point. And any podcast that I do external like this will be on our website. Come to our website. There's a spot on there if you want to get a hold of me, feel free. But always email me at scott@fantasysportsstrategies.com. Love to hear
I
from
love
anybody.
that.
I'll talk anything you want to talk about, including any sports related thing. Always
Thank you
open.
so much. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this episode of the Game Changers. If today's conversation gave you a fresh perspective on fantasy football or the game of life, do me a favor, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. I read them all. Mark your calendar for next Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for Jorge Edwards. He's going to be in the house for more game changing conversations. A big thank you for Iggy tonight for the behind the scene magic and the powerhouse of the TSA team for making this platform possible. Subscribe, hit the bell, leave a review, and follow us on social media. Until next time, keep challenging the game and making your mark. This is Carla with Scott Hoyt signing off. Have a great evening, everybody. Good night.